Good morning, biology. I wanted to go over some of the photosynthesis notes with you just to start out. I'm going to go through a couple slides. So here we go. We're going to be we're starting our unit on photosynthesis and cell respiration. Another way you can think about this unit is that we are talking about how we use energy as, plants and animals, and how we get energy as animals and plants. Okay, so there are two processes in this unit that we're concentrating on. Obviously, the first one is going to be photosynthesis, and the other one is cellular respiration. So that's how this unit is going to be broken up. We're just concentrating on those two things, okay? And what happens in each of them, what they make, and like what kind of cells or like types of organisms do these types of processes. Okay, so I'm going to start with photosynthesis today and go through a little bit about what it is and some other stuff. I'm not going to be getting to the actual process like in detail today. I'm just going to be going over some basics of it. Okay, here we go. So photosynthesis. So photosynthesis, it's where carbon dioxide or CO2 is required in this process, and we use light from the sun in the form of photons, and we use water in the form of H2O, obviously, to produce sugar or glucose. Okay, so there is a formula at the bottom. This formula, unfortunately for you, you have to memorize. Okay, so in this equation down here, we see that we have CO2, which is just carbon dioxide. This is the stuff that you breathe out when when you're breathing. This is the stuff you breathe out. And we need water. We obviously know what liquid water is. And then we need the sun to provide energy to go through a reaction. That's what the arrow is about. And then the thing that we get at the end is this molecule, C6H12O6, which the other name for it is glucose. If my little box there will get out of the way. Glucose is another name for sugar. And then we also get oxygen out of it. Okay, so this is important because it's saying that we can take things that are, CO2 and water, and we can get something, these aren't really usable. This one, especially to us as people, carbon dioxide, because we breathe it out, we don't really need it. We do need water, but it's nice that we can take something we don't need, something we know we need, but we have lots of, and use this reaction to get something that we need, which is sugar, and obviously oxygen, which we breathe. Okay? And that is what happens in photosynthesis. The basics of it. If you don't like the equation thing, all you have to remember is carbon dioxide and water plus sunlight equals sugar and oxygen. Okay? You can write that in your notes, or like write a little note to yourself on these notes if you print them out, what each of these things in the equation are. Okay? Next part. So a question we have is, where does photosynthesis itself take place? Photosynthesis takes place in plants. Okay? And plants and some other bacteria, but you, me, other animals can't really do photosynthesis. Okay? Plants are the majority of the photosynthesizers, so we focus on them and where photosynthesis takes place. So if we look at that, we start, in a leaf. And in the leaf, there are things called stoma, which are little like mouth openings in the leaf. And in the stoma takes in air and it brings it into the leaf to the other cells in the leaf. Hopefully you recognize that as a mini, like a simplified version of a plant cell, which we covered last chapter. These are also called mesophyll cells. So the mesophyll is a layer in the leaf, and specifically it takes place in the little green organelles in your cell. If you remember correctly, those are called chloroplasts. Okay. Plants are called autotrophs, which means that they're self-producers. You can see that in the word auto like automated, which means like it itself can make stuff, and trophs is producer, so self-producer. The location is in the leaves at the very, basic level, in the stoma, in your mesophyll cells of your plants. So let's look at this a little closer. Here's a picture of the stomata or the stoma. So this, as you can see in the diagram, it has two guard cells on it, and the thing that gets exchanged in here is gases like carbon dioxide and oxygen. Since we need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis to take place, you can assume that the carbon dioxide is going into and the oxygen is coming out of the stoma. Okay. We also call these pores in the plant's cuticle. The cuticle is just the outer layer of, the plant skin, quote unquote. So this is through which water and gases are exchanged between the plant and the atmosphere. So along with carbon dioxide, water vapor can also go through here, because water vapor, when water's in the air as vapor, it's a gas. Okay. So these are basically like little mouths or pores that suck in air and water, specifically suck in carbon dioxide, and it spits out or breathes out oxygen. Okay? If we move in closer to our cell, so, our plant is made out of these little cells, and we're going to, specifically call them mesophyll cells in the mesophyll layer. And they have, obviously, a nucleus right here. They have a cell wall on the outside. They got a central vacuole in the middle, the big lake that holds all the water and nutrients. And then we have our chloroplasts. Okay. Looking in further, we're going to look at a chloroplast specifically. So if we go back, we're going to look at one of these green guys. In a chloroplast, it's made out of several things. It has an outer membrane, an inner membrane. It has the inner space called the stroma. Please don't get this confused with the stoma. Remember, the stoma is the mouth. The stroma is the inside of the chloroplast. Okay, then we have these discs called thylakoids. And those discs are actually piled on top of each other in what's called a granum. Okay. And if we look even closer, so if you remember, this is the organelle in which photosynthesis takes place. The chloroplast is. Okay. So if we look even closer at a stack of thylakoids, at a granum, we see that each thylakoid has a thylakoid membrane around it, And then the inside is called the thylakoid space. Okay? So this is important because this is where photosynthesis takes place at the very microscopic level, is in a thylakoid, okay, inside the chloroplast. And we'll go over that in more detail later. But I just wanted to let you know that I went over this stuff because I do expect you to know specific places where this all takes place, okay? So going back over everything, photosynthesis happens in plants, specifically when you take a look at your leaves. You go into this, you take things in, carbon dioxide and water in through the stoma or the stomata, and you deliver those to the plant cell. The plant cell intakes those materials, and in the chloroplast of that cell, in that mesophyll cell, the chloroplast uses them in in these granum in each thylakoid to produce to go through the reaction of photosynthesis and produce sugar from the carbon dioxide and the water that we got. Okay? I know it's a big process going from big to little, but that is where it takes place. Okay. Moving on to our next question, which is, why are plants green? So many of you might say plants are green because they're green. They're green because they produce something that is green. Okay? And to us, green works differently. It's a little bit of a light thing. It's kind of cool, but plants are green because they produce something that absorbs everything but green light. So let's take a look here. So the thing that is responsible for making it green is actually called a chlorophyll molecule. So this is located in the thylakoid membranes. So if you remember, it's in the outer part of each disc. Okay, chlorophyll pigment absorbs certain wavelengths, which specifically is blue and red. And you see those weird numbers afterwards. These weird numbers indicate the size of the wavelength that is absorbed. If you remember from physical science, we went over waves. In waves, each color is defined by a wavelength. Blues are, in a smaller wavelength than red is, but these are typically the size of the waves of the colors that chlorophyll loves to absorb the most. Okay. So like I said, plants are green because the green wavelength is reflected, not absorbed. So chlorophyll loves to absorb these two. Notice blue, red, and what's our other primary light color? You hopefully answered green. Yellow is the primary color in pigment, not in light. The three light colors that are primary are blue, red, and green. So you'll notice blue and red are absorbed, but green isn't. Instead, green is reflected. So that green reflected back to your eyes is what we see as green. This works for other things as well. So say if you're wearing a black shirt, that black shirt will absorb all wavelengths of color and not reflect any back, and so you see black. Whereas white light is made up of all the colors. So a white shirt is a shirt that doesn't absorb any color, any wavelengths, and it reflects all of them back. Okay. All right. So chlorophyll is the reason why our plants and leaves are green. Here's the color spectrum of light. I don't know if you remember, but your short wavelengths are over here with purple and blue, and your long wavelengths, which have less energy, red and orange, are over here. Okay. So as you can see, we like to absorb here in the blue and over here in the red, but not so much here in the green or the yellow area. Here is the absorption of chlorophyll. So this shows you the colors that are absorbed by chlorophyll. So you can see my little graph here got wrecked. Let me try and salvage that. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. Here we go. Sorry about that. So this shows you the absorption spectrum, or the things that chlorophyll like to absorb. So as you can see, blue is high here, and in the red area is also high. So this tells us that, and down here, green and yellow is low. So this shows us what colors that chlorophyll like to absorb the most. It seems like blue here, it really likes, and then red after that. Okay. Next one. During the fall, what causes the leaves to change color? So as we all know, leaves don't stay green all the time here in the Midwest, especially up here in Minnesota. In the fall, we get those very pretty colors of red, orange, and yellow in the fall. And there's a reason for why that happens. So the reason that happens is because we have other pigments other than chlorophyll present during that time. Okay. During the fall, the green chlorophyll is greatly reduced, and that allows other pigments to be more, uh, like more present than the green chlorophyll. Okay. There are things called carotenoids, which are also produced by leaves, and those pigments are either red or yellow. Okay. This is a word I expect you to know. Carotenoids, as well as chlorophyll. So carotenoids, some plants actually have red and yellow leaves by default, right? And so that should inform you that there are more carotenoid pigments that are produced in those leaves than chlorophyll. But they work just the same. They absorb certain wavelengths of light to help it go through photosynthesis. Okay, so just letting you know that we have other pigments other than chlorophyll. Chlorophyll makes it green. Carotenoids make it either red or yellow. A way that you can think about this word better is I think of carrot when I look at this word. Carrots are orange, and orange is made out of what two pigments? Red and yellow. Okay, so carotenoids make your leaves red and yellow. Okay. All right. And that's why I think I'm going to stop today, because this question gets into the process in depth of photosynthesis to like show you what exactly is happening to turn CO2 and H2O into something else. So I'm going to stop there. And if you have questions on what we covered today, let me know. and I'd be happy to help you out. Other than that, I'll talk to you later, biology. Bye!